You may recall that on the 27th of March 2020, I briefed you on the highlights of the level of preparedness of the Nigerian military in support of the federal government of Nigeria towards tackling the COVID-19 pandemic. In this regard, I am to give you more details on the preparedness of the Armed Forces of Nigeria, which are as follows. First and foremost, a committee headed by the Chief of Defense Training and Operations in the person of Major General Irabo is in place, interfacing with all relevant ministries, departments, and agencies of the federal government of Nigeria managing the COVID-19 pandemic. And also, as mentioned in my first briefing regarding COVID-19, there are 17 isolation and treatment centers earmarked, which are spread across the 6 geopolitical zones of the country as follows. The last time I didn't give you the breakdown and the details, but here they are. In the southwest, we have the 68 Nigerian Army Reference Hospital located in Yaba, Lagos. We have the 2 Division Hospital in Ibadan. Then in the south-south, we have the Military Hospital Porakot, Navy Reference Hospital Calabar, Military Hospital Benin. Southeast, we have the 211 Regiment Group Medical Center, Owerri, 82 Division Military Hospital, Enugu. Then the North Central. In the North Central, we have 161 Nigerian Air Force Hospital, Makurdi, 22 Brigade Medical Center, Ilorin. In the Northwest, we have the 44 Nigerian Army Reference Hospital, Kaduna, 465 Nigerian Air Force Hospital, Kano, 263 Nigerian Air Force Reference Hospital, Daura, and then we have 119 Composite Group Medical Center, Sokoto. Then in the Northeast, we have the 261 Nigerian Air Force Reference Hospital, Bauchi, 161 Nigerian Air Force Hospital, Yola, 7 Division Military Hospital, Maiduguri, and 27 Task Force Brigade Field Ambulance, Damaturu. The plan is that these centers are working closely with NCDC and the Central Management Committee of the federal government to ensure that they are as close as possible to most of the urban centers, where the states will eventually establish their various centers, as the case may be. Further to this, a good number of Armed Forces of Nigerian medical personnel have been earmarked to be trained on the management of COVID-19 cases, which will be done in liaison with Nigerian Center for Disease Control. Of course, we all know that it is not an all-comers affair, so you have to be specially trained on how to protect yourself at the first instance before you can now go and manage a COVID-19 case. In the same vein, about 48 disaster response units of the Armed Forces of Nigeria are on notice to move in conjunction with NEMA. These units will handle operations other than medicals that may arise in the course of this non-kinetic military operation. That is to be explained better. Any other thing that will come up, apart from medical functions, will be handled appropriately by the military. And some of them, which amongst others may include miscreants taking undue advantage of the situation. The disaster response units are there to provide that adequate and non-kinetic support. Finally, The Armed Forces of Nigeria is to implement all restrictions on movement in line with the federal government of Nigeria and for the avoidance of doubt. I want to state here that this includes the presidential directive given by the President Commander-in-Chief during his address to the nation on the COVID-19 pandemic yesterday, 29 March 2020. On this note, I wish to express that the High Command of the Nigerian military hereby solicit for the support of the general public in this trying period of the fight against COVID-19. And this can only be achieved by adhering to all the medical and administrative guidelines being provided by government at all levels. We have one case recorded since the whole thing came up, and it's one of our colleagues that came from a tour of duty visit or something abroad. And when he came back, he didn't know such a thing was wrong with him, but started feeling the symptoms, the signs and symptoms. Was admitted in one of our hospitals, and when the symptoms, began to manifest, particularly the fever and others, and the doctors, contacted the appropriate quarters, and his test sample was taken, and it was positive. So he was moved to Gwagwalada, and he has been responding appropriately to treatment. So that is the only confirmed case. Any other one you hear from outside, maybe if you hear anything, it's a rumor. And like I told you, this is the clearing house. So and as we progress, if there are other ones, I will let you know. One thing about this Directorate of Defense Media Operations is that we want to achieve a level of high integrity when it comes to figures. We will only push sometimes to give figures when we want to counter fake reporting and then fake news. Of course, by the time the fake news comes and we give, we can now tell you, but I think this one is too much to be handled in that way. So you give us time, we'll be calling for this briefing and be updating you regularly. If anything does not permit us, we can send it to you. So by the time that, now that there is a almost total lockdown in the major epicenters in Nigeria, we believe that things will begin to roll very fast, and a lot of equipment have been coming in, which will begin to share. So we're going to do other analysis, if necessary, just like you have asked, if possible, before the next meeting, as we get there. Then for the issue of penalty will be left for the police. It's not for the military, but because I shouldn't tell you that this is a penalty for any person that flouts, the directive of staying at home, of wandering from one place to the other. It should be with the police because it is their first responsibility. What we normally do is that we provide aid to civil authorities, but as I speak with you, we now have the legality, to work with them if they call us. That is just our own. So, but the penalty, of course, there is penalty for flouting any instructions or orders. That is about law and order. That, at least from my general knowledge, I know that there should be a penalty, but the police will give that clarification.
All right, let's head into the papers now, see what the headlines are across Nigeria. And I have with me leadership and communication strategist, Dr. John. Dr. Good morning.
Good morning, Mike.
And thank God it's Monday. Although everyone is being cautious anyway, but thank God it's still Monday.
Least,
yeah. Okay. Let's start from the Daily Trust newspaper this morning. It says COVID-19, Buhari locks down FCT, Lagos, Ogun. Include all states with confirmed cases. Announces palliatives for Nigerians. And why I moved to Lagos, Abakari, the chief of staff to the president, is explaining and talking to Nigerians there. All right, from the Daily Trust, let's go to Daily Times. A real sector, capital market to lose 10 trillion naira as confirmed cases rise to 111 in 11 states and Abuja. Dangote, Ovia, Rabiu, others donate billions to federal government. A renowned economist, Professor Obadan, raises alarm on microeconomic impact. That's all you see on the front page of the Daily Times. Blueprint is next. As COVID-19 cases rise to 111, Buhari locks down Lagos, Abuja, Ogun for 14 days. Effective 11 p.m. today, which is Monday, gives 3-month grace to repay trader money and others. Immigration boss, UCH, CMD, UI College Provost, all positive. And German minister commits suicide. And NNPC others donate $30 million. And Buhari's address didn't address nation's concerns, as the PDP is saying that. All right, from the Blueprint, let's go to Business AM. Negative junk rating tightens Nigeria's borrowing window. That's what you see on Business AM. And News Direct is next, and the last one was looking at for this morning, COVID-19 pandemic. Buhari directs lockdown of Abuja, Lagos, Ogun for 14 days. Confirmed cases hit 111 on Sunday, and Aimee imposes dusk-to-dawn curfew, orders borders to close. And Serap seeks weekly publication of spending details. And Tinubu donates 200 million naira to fight coronavirus. All right, that's all. Those are some of the headlines you see on the front page of the News Direct. Doctor, yesterday the president gave a broadcast, a national broadcast to the nation, talking to Nigerians on what the government is doing so far and some of the measures and steps taken to ensure that the government contains the coronavirus. There was a lockdown, there was an order to lock down Lagos, Ogun and Abuja from today's 11 p.m. But on the whole, I wonder what was the takeaway for you from the broadcast?
The takeaway is, I think it's about time for us to understand that silence is another form of communication. And it's a kind of feedback. If the people expect you to speak and you are not talking, you're actually speaking without knowing. The broadcast of the president yesterday, to a very great extent, has given hope. First, it has cleared the doubt in the heart of many Nigerians that perhaps the president has not been feeling fine. Second, as the father of the nation, we are not saying, we know that the president may not be a talking type like people like us who want to seize every opportunity to clarify issues and talk to the people. But we must understand that communication is a strategic part of leadership. And at every point in time, there's the need for your community to know what your government is doing. So for the president to have come out, generally, I think that's going to boost the hope of an average Nigerian. It's like listening or hearing your father in time of crisis. It's going to take away so many doubts and instill hope in the people. But having said that, I think there are some few clarifications that have to be made today from the presidency. And I'm going to start from the issue of the lockdown of Lagos, for example. When you say Lagos, Ogun, and Abuja are to be locked down, we expect that people will stay indoors. That's the expectation. But again, if you look at the broadcast is not clear in details as to what the government really expects the people to do. For example, if I'm in my 12 and I live in if I'm in my 12, can I walk from my 12 to Ketu to get fuel for my generator? Because immediately the president mentioned the word lockdown, the second paragraph, the president said, let everybody who wants to travel out of this state wait, exercise patience. Does the lockdown mean that we are not supposed to travel out of the state, or we are not supposed to actually work within the community? Does it mean that vehicular movement is actually prohibited, as the case may be? So I think these are some of the clarifications, because I do not want a situation. You know what happened in Lagos? The Lagos state government actually said some, except for the non-essential commodities, that some offices and shops should be closed. But we all saw it on the social media to the extent that the Inspector General of Police had to intervene at a point when police went into a beer parlor and they were destroying everything on site. Yeah. So I do not want people to take advantage of the lockdown. We have to be clear as to, are we expected to stay in our house 24 hours within these 14 days, or can we get basic commodities, including food, at this particular time. These are some little clarifications so that people who are not totally educated will not take advantage of the situation.
All right. Now, besides all of those, the issue of the president speaking, where Nigerians have been saying we want to hear the president speak, do you think that the Ghanaian president being on TV almost every week, talking to Ghanaians on what they're doing, the South African president on TV almost every week, also talking to South Africans on what the government is doing and what should be, do you think that is putting pressure on the president and Nigerians demanding that they also want to hear from their president?
Globally, I think the attitude of presidents globally is actually was a major factor, really, because if those even who are not speaking right, the president who are not speaking right, you still see them on television, still speaking most of the time. I think it's a global pressure. It's beyond what the Ghanaian president is saying. It's beyond what the South African president is saying. At this point in time, like I said the other time, people really want to see the head of their country speak. For example,
but the point there is beyond seeing him speak, he is the one who has given strength to the NCDC to function, to the Ministry of Health to function, the Presidential Task Force to function. So whether we hear from him or we don't hear from him, that is still him working through all of these channels, isn't it?
You see, that's why I tell people, especially in government, to be very, very careful. Don't get to a point where people will always want to see you speak before they believe that things are working.
Okay.
We must create a system naturally. For example, if we have a system that everybody believes in, nobody will be worried whether the president speaks or not. But there's been doubt, and the doubt is a product of hoarding of information. For example, the chief of staff to the president, I think I heard it almost immediately that incident happened, that the man will be flown to Lagos. I didn't believe it because it was not in the mainstream media. But today now, we are having a confirmation. These are some of the things that cause doubt. So when you give your community an opportunity to doubt you when you do not speak, then they will be calling for you to speak at every point in time.
All right. We have to leave it here now. Dr. John, thank you so much for your time.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Right.
It's time to take a look at stories making the headlines in Nigerian newspapers. I have with me in the studio leadership and communication strategist, Dr. Ogun. Good morning, Dr.
Good morning, Vero.
Thank you for joining us. Same to you. Yeah. All right, let's head straight to the papers now, and I begin with the Daily Trust. COVID-19, Buhari locks down Federal Capital Territory, Lagos, Ogun. Include all states with confirmed cases, announces palliatives for Nigerians. Wire moved to Lagos, Abakari. To the Daily Times now, real sector, capital market to lose 10 trillion naira as confirmed cases rise to 111 in 11 states and Abuja. Dangote, Ovia, Rabiu, others donate billions to federal government. Renowned economist Professor Obadan raises alarm on microeconomic impact. To the blueprints now, as COVID-19 cases rise to 111, Buhari locks down Lagos, Abuja, Ogun for 14 days. Effective 11 p.m. Monday, that's today, gives 3 months grace to repay trader money others. Immigration boss, UCHCMD, UI College Provost, positive. German minister commits suicide. NNPC, others donate $30 million. Buhari's address didn't address nation's concern, PDP. To the Business AM, a negative junk rating tightens Nigeria's borrowing window. And on the front page of the News Direct, COVID-19 pandemic, Buhari directs lockdown of Abuja, Lagos, Ogun for 14 days. Confirmed cases hit 111 on Sunday. Aimee imposes dusk to dawn curfew. Others borders closure. Serap seeks weekly publication of spending details. Tinubu donates 200 million naira to fight coronavirus. To the front page of this day newspaper, Buhari locks down Lagos, Ogun, Abuja as COVID-19 cases rise to 111. Suspends flight operations, promises stipend for vulnerable people, gives 3-month moratorium on development bank loans. I feel well, says Kyari, moves to Lagos for further tests. Anambra, Ekiti, Benue, Ogun, Yobe, Abia close borders. Dangote, Sanusi, Bello test negative. Stallion Group pledges rice and fish supply to government hospitals. Air Peace evacuates 274 Israelis to Tel Aviv. And finally, on the front page of the Nation newspaper, Buhari shuts down Lagos, Abuja, Ogun for 14 days. Federal government revs up anti-COVID-19 battle. Senate backs president's action. And here we have a highlight of the president's statements yesterday. The citizens should stay at home, travels banned, all business offices to close, planes grounded, seaports in Lagos to remain operational, essential services exempted, sustenance of food, school feeding program, repayment moratorium for trader money, market money, farmer money, loans, immediate payment of 2 months conditional cash transfer, IDPs to receive 2 months of food rations, moratorium for all federal government-funded loans, BOI, BOA and NEB, concession negotiation for on-lending facilities using capital from international multilateral development partners. These are some of the things that came out of the president's press briefing yesterday, and it's still raising or generating reactions, Dr. Yeah. Some have said that the president's statement was not all-encompassing. It wasn't as robust as they expected because stemming from what you have seen from other countries, where we see that the government even went ahead to talk about, some form of palliatives for those who have to pay house rents and all of those. Yeah. And some are saying that perhaps the government should have infused that here, talking about those who pay house rents, those who pay light bills and water bills, seeing that some persons will be losing their jobs, wouldn't be paid salaries at this point. Yeah. What do you make of this?
I think Nigerians should be concerned about practicability rather than perfection. Right. The first thing you ask yourself is that everything the president has said, are they practicable? Because you can never get a perfect speech anywhere, not even from the goldsmiths of words. So, but there are issues here and there, no doubt about the fact that there are issues here and there. Thank God that the president has come out to talk, and at least that has given a number of us hope. But I think there are a lot of explanations that have to be done as regards that speech that was given by Mr. President. First, you talk about the conditional cash transfer
to the vulnerable.
We have a huge challenge in our hand. I think besides coronavirus, I think the major challenge we have now is inability to have access to data. Maybe we don't even have at all. So if the president is coming out to say, oh, I am actually going to transfer money to some certain set of people, this has been the concern since the day of 5,000 naira to the poorest of the poor in the country. Because the explanation, the question has always been, who are these people? Yeah. You don't get to identify them, because the argument will be that the poorest of the poor don't even have a functional bank account. This has been some of the issues here and there. And when you talked about, when the president talked about the school feeding program, the first question you ask yourself is that, okay, these kids are at home, really? Yeah. Is he expecting that the caterer or the cooks will continue to bring food to them in the house? This is possible if that is what the president is saying. But again, that's where the issue, the need for explanation comes in. I think the presidency will now come to tell Nigerians that, oh, on this particular point, this is what the president actually means. I think these are the little disconnects here and there. For example, we talked about, just off the camera, we're talking about lockdown of Lagos.
Yes.
And there were a lot of questions that have come up since then. If you allow those that are selling food to go open their store and market, the question is that if everybody is actually locked down, who is going to patronize them? Because immediately the president talked about the lockdown of Lagos and the 2 other places, he actually said that those people who want to travel out of these places should exercise patience for now. To me, I was asking myself, this lockdown that we are talking about, does it mean that the president doesn't want people to travel out of these communities, or he doesn't want them to travel around within the community? So these are some of the issues that I think today we must get.
But quickly, how optimistic are you that all of these measures being put in place will achieve the needed result? Because we are looking at containing the spread. And a lot of persons have said that this lockdown that we are bringing now should have happened a long time ago, as soon as we had the index case.
Yes, in Nigeria, you need to be very careful. In a community where about 70%, I don't want to be generous with figure, live under the poverty line, you have to be very careful. At the end of the day, what will kill the people may not be the coronavirus. It may be the economic impact of the coronavirus. So it's easy for anybody to say, let's lock down. From the position where we are in, we may not be worthy, but perhaps we are on the average level. We can continue to advocate that, come on, let's lock down. But you must remember that Lagos, for example, is a community that is being driven by daily money. There are some people who cannot live for 3 days without going out. So you need to put some of these considerations in place. I think this is what the government has taken its time to do. Unfortunately, without data that we talked about the other time, you may not be able to actually get across to people who need support. Let me cite an example.
Quickly.
The Lagos State government is planning to send food across to, I think, 200,000 people or households.
Yes.
Now the question is, people have been coming to ask me, how does this food actually get across to the people? In my head, I was thinking perhaps people with lastra. But you look at the percentage of people with lastra in Lagos, what is the percentage? So once a community has issues with data, the community will have issues with aid because you do not know who actually needs the aid.
All right, we'll leave it at this point, Dotun. Thank you so much for speaking with us.
Head into the papers now, see what the headlines are, and I have with me in the studio leadership and communication strategist, Dotun John. Dotun, good morning.
Good morning, Mike.
It's nice to see you on the Monday
Pleasure
morning.
always, yeah.
All right, let's begin with Daily Trust. Daily Trust said COVID-19, Buhari locks down FCT, Lagos, Ogun, include all states with confirmed cases, announces palliatives for Nigerians. Wire move to Lagos. Abakari is saying this. Now from there, Daily Times is next. Real sector capital market to lose 10 trillion naira as confirmed cases rise to 111 in 11 states and Abuja. Dangote, Ovia, Rabiu, others donate billions to federal government. And renowned economist Professor Obadan raises alarm on microeconomic impact. Okay, Blueprint is next as COVID-19 cases rise to 111. Buhari locks down Lagos, Abuja, Ogun for 14 days, effective 11 p.m. Monday. It gives 3 months grace to repay trader money on others. And immigration boss, UCH CMD, UI College Provost test positive. German minister commits suicide. NNPC others donate $30 million. Buhari's address didn't address nation's concerns. As the PDP saying that. Business AM is next, and he says negative junk rating tightens Nigeria's borrowing window. Okay. News Direct is next. COVID-19 pandemic. Buhari directs lockdown of Abuja, Lagos, Ogun for 14 days. Confirmed cases hit 111 on Sunday. And Aimee imposes dusk to dawn curfew, orders border closure. And Sterap seeks a weekly publication of spending details. And Tinubu donates 200 million naira to fight coronavirus. This day is next now, and it says Buhari locks down Lagos, Ogun, Abuja as COVID-19 cases rise to 111. Okay, that's suspends flight operations, promises a stipend for vulnerable people, gives 3-month moratorium on development bank loans. I feel well, says Kerry, moves to Lagos for further tests. Anambra, Ekiti, Benue, Ogun, Yobe, Abia close borders. Dangote, Sanusi, Bello test negative. A stallion group pledges rice and fish supply to government hospitals. And Air Peace evacuates 274 Israelis to Tel Aviv. And that will be the first first direct flight from Nigeria to Israel by the aircraft, or the airline rather. All right, now the Nation newspaper is the next and the last one. Now Buhari shuts down Lagos, Abuja, Ogun for 14 days. The federal government revs up the anti-COVID-19 battle. Senate backs president's action. Okay. Oh, so much on all the papers. COVID-19, fallout here, economic, financial, political, and all of that going on one way or the other. But let me draw your attention to, I guess you've seen the list so far of Nigerians donating to to fighting the cause against COVID-19, which a lot of people have applauded. If you go to South Africa, it's the same kind of donation. You go to United States, it's the same kind of donation. But what do you make of the gesture and generosity that is coming from billionaires around Nigeria?
At this point in time, I think we need people who have benefited in one way or the other from the economic prosperity of the nation to actually give back to the community. It is expected But for those who have not done, it's not a crime if you if you haven't done. But of course, the doors are not closed yet. But again, it tells us that an average Nigerian, either, no matter how we see ourselves, that we are good people. I was driving one morning, early morning, and I don't know what happened. My vehicle just stopped. And a bus conductor came and was helping me to check the vehicle. In the process, he discovered that there was no water in the radiator. He ran back to his own vehicle to bring 25 liters of water just to help me. That's the spirit of an average Nigerian. But again, over the time, we have seen people abuse these privileges to the point that when you're doing well to a particular person, and I've fallen victim several times, if you are being nice to somebody, they are thinking that they are taking advantage
you have an ulterior motive.
First, whether you have an ulterior motive, or secondly, they want to actually take advantage of the entire process. A friend of mine sent one of his staff, and because it's a small organization, abroad to study. And immediately the guy came back. The guy resigned because there was no documentation as to how long you're going to stay with me after your education abroad. These are some of the things. So that also needs we need to be very careful about, number one, about how we are accountable about some of these funds that have been given.
SERAP is already calling for a daily publication, of how the monies are spent.
Yeah.
And you also recall that during the days of donations from China and people and even Nigerians in this way for IDPs and for the cause in the northeast, a lot of the monies and even the rice and all of that were mismanaged.
Yes, Global Fund.
And diverted.
Yes, Global Fund is an organization that has given up to, I think, about $2 billion to Nigeria to fight malaria, HIV, AIDS, and tuberculosis. But you discover that a further research has shown that a major chunk of this money has gone into private pocket. Get under the bridge in Oshodi, you see them hawking insecticide treated mosquito net. Majority of them actually came from Global Fund to fight malaria. So a lot of people that are talking at this point in time, they are talking from the position of experience of what they have seen, especially in government circle, that monies that have been, in fact, to the point now that, I'm sorry, but it's getting to a point now that people have begun to think that the number will continue to rise, not necessarily because there may be new infection, but because there may be some political people who want to also benefit directly from these donations. That's how Nigerians are thinking. And you cannot take that away from them because they are speaking from the point of experience. For example, we have seen a state governor come out to say he needs 1 billion naira from the federal government to actually prevent the disease from getting to his community. What happens if we now have state declaring fake figure because they want to have their own share of this largesse?
Well,
so we need to
it's
be very careful.
It's a good thing that there's a central monitoring system for the COVID-19, so that whatever claim that you have, it certainly has to be verified and confirmed by the NCDC and confirmed. And certainly the NCDC is also being monitored by WHO. So there's a chain and layers of verifications here and there. So I guess, but the point there is, some persons have said this money is coming in, that since, like you were talking about experience earlier on, because of the experiences we've had as a nation, a lot of people are saying, give us this monies in equipment, not in cash. What do you make of that? Yes,
if you look at the donation, really, majority of the people, I think about 2 or 3 of them, are not actually giving $1 billion naira. A majority, they have done it in a way that they earmark a particular amount of money that will come in form of equipment and all that. And I remember one particular person that is not even giving money at all. He wants to supply some of these things. So it's also good. But again, we need to know that perhaps also this amount of money that we are getting from these donors, apart from the fact that we will use them to take care of the people that have been affected directly, we should also create a way where people that are affected, infected and affected, can actually benefit from it. For example, if we can have a certain part of the money that has been given to the Lagos State government, for example, if we can have a little out of it taken out to take care of the needs of the people, to support whatever the government is doing, so that people who are affected directly, the bus conductors who can no longer go out, the taxi drivers who can no longer go out, the market women who can no longer open.
I'm guessing that is the Lagos State government's plan, because they talked about making provision for about 200,000 people.